Hello and welcome to another episode of the Accountant Success Secrets podcast. I'm Philippa Haynes of Insight 101.
And I'm Mark Lee of Bookmark Lee. This is our 41st episode. This is live, folks. 41st episode of our podcast and our 34th interview. I wish I hadn't tried that.
Yeah, get your teeth in, Mark. Come on. Each week on our podcast, we aim to showcase and celebrate successful accountants who've been running their own practice for a good few years and who we think can inspire and encourage other accountants in practice around the UK.
We ask them to share their stories, including the highs, the lows, and what they've learned along the way. Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for you, our loyal listener. And if you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with Philippa or me. We're now taking bookings into February and March 2025.
Yep, we certainly are, and I'm sure that'll come around really quickly. Okay, so today's podcast is sponsored by Pinnacle, a trusted outsourcing partner with well over 120 clients across the UK and Ireland. Pinnacle's CEO, Mayank Pandya, is a chartered accountant based in London, and he has a passion to encourage innovation and excellence in the accounting profession. Pinnacle has offices in the UK and offshore delivery centres across India, employing over 250 high-quality staff. With a strong focus on quality assurance, Pinnacle has helped many UK accounting firms to scale their capacity and operations. Right, so to find out more, please visit their website, www.pinnacleoss.co.uk. You'll also find the link online wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Indeed. And also supporting the podcast is the Tax Advice Network, whose website enables accountants to choose specific specialist tax advisors for general tax support or for help across any of over 100 areas of tax. It's free to use, and you can check it out at findataxadvisor.online, where you can also access their weekly tips for general practitioner accountants.
Good. Right. Now the exciting part. So today we are delighted to introduce Andrew Evans, who is founder and director of Sky Life Accountancy. This is going to be a good one, folks. The Sky Life practice is based in Caerphilly in Wales. He's now a certified accountant with the Institute of Financial Accountants, having previously qualified with the ACCA. He's also been an entrepreneur and loves using his experience in accounting and finance in combination with his experience in entrepreneurship. His accounting practice is very much focused on businesses in the video games industry, and his website is unlike any other I have seen for an accountancy firm. Yes, indeed, it's fantastic.
Welcome, Andrew. Is there anything else you'd like to add by way of introduction?
No, good morning. That was lovely. Thank you very much.
You're very, very welcome. Yeah. So it's first question. That's your Mark, I think.
Yep. Well, as you know, we aim to keep the podcast about 30 minutes, and we'll do that by focusing around a few questions. So the first one is, essentially, how did you come to be setting up your own practice, and how did you do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so I've kind of always wanted to have my own business ever since I was a kid. I think I've always been a bit of a dreamer, I suppose. I just remember very young, around the age of 9, 10, 11, I was obsessed with the Sega Mega Drive, and I was kind of designing video games and thinking, could I not email because that wasn't even a thing then, get in contact with gaming studios to make my games. And then I went on to other things. I've always been quite a creative person. But then when I left, when I went to university to do accounting, it was a choice really. It was either sort of graphic design or something art-based, because that's probably what I'm best at, if I'm being honest, or a more solid career, which is obviously in accounting. So I made the mistake of going down that road. But no, eventually I left uni and I went to do ACCA, self-study, self-taught myself ACCA. Didn't go down the normal route of sort of, leaving uni and going into work into a practice straight away. So it did take a while to get qualified, but I always had the aspiration of starting my own accountancy business at some point. But it wasn't my first business that I set up. I set around about 10 years ago now. I think I set up it was an event company called Foot Bubble, and this was Zorb football. So I don't know if you know what Zorb football is, but you wear the gigantic inflatable bubble and play football. So me and a friend launched that business. It was really, really good fun, and we did that for about 3 years. And to be honest, that kick-started the proper drive then to start my own business and be my own boss, really. I would say, yeah, ever since I was a kid, really, I've wanted to, but obviously the idea to start my own accountancy business probably didn't really materialize until I qualified from the ACCA.
It's interesting because you are the most unlikely, I mean, based on your back history and, you know, the Sega Mega Drive and then deciding it was either accountancy or kind of design. And you went into accountancy. I mean, just...
Well, I'm quite a procrastinator. So I think when it came to the time that I picked university, I think like my dad, he's not an accountant, but he worked in a finance background for a large business, a good British business, and I think it was just maybe I was just being sensible at the time and just thinking I probably would have a better career in accountancy. And I think one thing I used to tell myself and I used to tell other people back then was, art and design, as you can see on my website, it will always be something you can do as a hobby. Whereas accountancy is not something you would do as a hobby, like it's a career, isn't it? So I kind of made that excuse for myself, I guess. But I wouldn't change it for the world, really. I'm happy that I went down that route because it's got me to where I am today, and I can still be creative and and do that in my business.
So
sorry, I just wanted to pick up on, I think doing the design, graphic design and the design work that you enjoy doing, keeping that something you can enjoy rather than trying to earn a living from it is a bit like me and my magic, quickly realizing that I wouldn't earn a good living from that, just keep it as not even a side hustle anymore. It was for a few years. So I can relate to that completely. What I don't get is what drove you to think that you wanted to set up an accountancy practice?
Well, it was more of a case, and I just spotted your magic wand on the bookshelf behind you, Ron. I think it was just more, I needed to set up a business. I was a qualified accountant, and it just naturally just came together.
Gotcha.
It's not that when I was growing up, I dreamed of having an accountancy business. Most people wouldn't.
I just wanted to clarify that.
I think it was just coming to a certain stage in my life. I was,
But it was interesting you wanted to set one up, not having worked in an accountancy practice before. That's quite unusual.
Yeah, I got just literally winged it, basically went straight into it. Because I worked for, my last job was working for the BBC. But I was
doing what? What were you doing for them then?
So I worked in the Centre of Excellence, basically a finance department full of So initially worked for the financial reporting team, and then I worked for BBC News, or within the BBC News finance team. And then I kind of knew that eventually I would set up my own business because the board already been moved with setting up Foot Bubble. I just knew that's where I wanted to go. I wanted to set up. I just wanted to be a business owner at some point for the rest of my life.
So how did it go then? Because I mean, it's quite a good background, isn't it? Sort of Zorb football, then sort of finance at BBC, then sort of going into your own kind of setting up your own practice. How's that been? What have you kind of learned?
So I've learned. I mean, when you're doing it by yourself, the amount of things you learn is absolutely insane, to be honest. I mean, everyone knows it's a bit of a cliche, running a business is hard, but I think it's beyond hard. It is extremely difficult, and that's probably why so many businesses fail, because it's so easy to just, I can't do this anymore, I'm just going to give up when the going gets tough. But the one thing I've learned, and maybe it's one thing I've learned about myself, is if you truly believe in something, then you've got to keep going. I think you owe it to yourself. So that's one thing I've kept going. I'm still doing this relatively by myself. And I've had, like, not the only one. Everyone's had this thrown at them. But since I started the business, I had my second child, my wife. COVID happened, and then obviously since COVID, the economy has really kind of been in, up and down. So I think challenge-wise, everything's just been thrown. But because I want to do this, I'm not throwing in the towel. I've wanted to keep going, and I think that's one thing I've learned. Like, running a business is so hard, and it's not for everyone, and it doesn't have to be for everyone. But I know it is for me, so I'm just going to keep going, even though every week there's a new challenge to sort of accomplish.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can all recognize that, can't we? And you're right. It's definitely a mindset, isn't it? And it's almost a mindset of the crazy people who is like, this is really, really hard, but I'm going to carry on anyway.
The crucial thing is learning from what's gone wrong and moving forwards, rather than sort of repeating mistakes which didn't work. I heard a great speaker years ago, I think it was Tony Buzan, who developed mind maps, and he sort of showed that we're all constantly trying to get better, but every now and again there's a dip, and too many people describe that dip as a failure, and he, I suppose, taught me to think of it as a learning experience. And if you pick yourself up from that learning experience, you can then continue traveling upwards a lot faster than if you get stuck dwelling on that failure and not pulling yourself out of it and learning and moving onwards.
Yeah, because I guess, I mean, you're saying it's, business ownership it can be quite lonely. It can be very tough as well. And you said before we started recording that, your brother had kind of helped out a little bit at some point, but now it's you and the gym next door to you. So, do you have any plans to take people on, or was that a conscious decision that, you're just going to sort of do it yourself? And because that's, equally a way forward, isn't it?
So yeah, I'll chat about two things here. I'll go back to what Mark has said then as well about learning from mistakes. But I think as I've gone along, I've had various renditions of my business plan, whether that's in my head or on a document. And I do want to have people involved at some point. But I think I'm at the stage where, like, I outsource payroll to a really great company. And I think that is going to suit my plan better than employing people. Yes, I did employ my brother for a while, but that was mainly because he was going traveling and he needed some extra income while he was doing that. So he wasn't here long. He was just helping me out in the background, really, with some admin stuff I was sort of getting stuck on. So yeah, I don't know if I really want to employ people. I know that's not what other practices do. I personally don't know if it suits me. Like, I've got a gigantic workshop that I rent, and you could probably fit about 20 people in here, but I'm happy just being in here by myself. I'm a bit of a lone wolf. It is lonely at times. It really is, because especially when, something's thrown at you and you kind of got no one else to sort of bounce ideas off. But I think I'm happy with that. So yeah,
I think. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut across you, but you're not unusual in that. There are plenty of. I tend to only work with sole practitioner accountants. Some of them join my sole practice club to chat with other and learn from other sole practitioners. Some engage me on a one-to-one basis to be that sounding board, that sense check, if you like, particularly those like you who haven't worked in practice before. And I'm not suggesting this is what you're doing, but I know some are making it up as they go along and just want to know, does this make sense, or am I setting myself up some way? But there's a lot of people around like you who get fed up with all those commentators and other suppliers who say, you've got to grow. Well, you're unusual and you've got the space to grow, but you're choosing not to. There are plenty who say, hey, I don't have the space to get any bigger and I'm fine with it. So you're not alone in that.
Yeah, I think going back to Philip's question then again, so I do know, like, when I first started, the first year was about survival.
Yeah.
I knew I needed to get to a certain level, and I managed to hit that target literally on the 365th day, like the day
Oh,
before.
well done.
Brilliant.
It was cool. I signed a client on that day, and it meant I'd hit my target. So it was quite a nice achievement. And then 4 months later, COVID hit. So things, but I wouldn't like. I know there's stories out there of accountancy practices absolutely going through the roof through COVID just because of the apps. That didn't really happen with me. And if I'm being honest, I've been in a bit of a hamster wheel ever since. But I've still got to a good level of where I need to be. But when I set up the business, because I'm spreadsheet obsessed, like most accountants, but I'm constantly making stuff, and I devised a system because I know there's a lot of talk about growing like £1 million practice, and I'm not interested. I know where I need to get, and there's 3 levels essentially. The first one is obviously getting where I needed to get to, which was survival. The second one is where I should be, and I'm kind of nearly there. And then the third one is kind of pipe dream level, but it's not an end. It's not like a never ending cycle of just keep going up and up. I know if I can get to the third level, I can take the brakes off then, and hopefully then that will be enough. But it will take a lot of effort to get there, but it's fine because as long as I'm at level 2 or even level 1, it's fine. There's the other things that I have got going on in the background. Like, I've got a really good work-life balance. I take my kids to school every day. I pick them up usually twice a week. And I finish early most days because they got swimming lessons or whatever. So I very rarely work an 8-hour day. That just doesn't, I would like to sometimes. It just doesn't happen, and it's fine. I'm cool with that. I do work in the evenings sometimes in the house. But again, I choose to do that, and I might watch. Yeah, that's just the thing I do. I'm cool with that. It's not like I'm forcing. I'm putting the pressure on myself. Right, I've got to do this before midnight. It's just because I'm choosing to do it. I don't have to do it, but one of the things that I do try to stay on top of is I know I am my own bottleneck. So like I said, I'm spreadsheet obsessed. I'm software obsessed. I use Trello boards for everything. And I use that to manage my bottlenecks as best as I can. So I'm generally quite up to date with things, but obviously there are things when you're on your own that do catch you out. And it's now December. I've got quite a few year ends to do this month. I'm sure I'm going to be able to do them. So yeah, that's learning from your mistakes though. Like, I am quite organized, but it's so easy when you're on your own because you are the only one who can do the work.
So you mentioned mistakes then, and obviously you're kind of, you said you're your own sort of bottleneck. What other things have you kind of learned along the way, or sort of mistakes that you've made? And we've all made millions, I'm sure. So
I think you just can't obviously continue making mistakes. Like, I like to think I don't make many client mistakes. Like, we all do that. But I run an honest business. Clients know my personality, and that I go the extra mile for them. So anything that is an honest mistake, if I've done something on that level. But from a personal or business point of view, you are always learning. Like, that sometimes they're not even mistakes. It's more along like, okay, this isn't working. It's not necessarily a mistake, but I think one of the things that I really struggle with, and okay, this might be a mistake that I just continue to live, I really find it hard putting clients' prices up. And I've been sitting on this for about probably a year now, and I've probably missed off a lot of income, but at the same time, I know I'm charging my clients the right prices. It's just sometimes I'm getting stuck in a loop. So that's one sort of area I do keep making mistakes on. When you're on your own and you're the one who's got to do all that, I feel like it is quite difficult to learn from this, but I am learning, even if I'm not realizing that, because I join, I'm in a lot of accountancy groups online. Everyone has the same issue. And I tend to, every now and again, I come across a really good post and it'll resonate with me, and I will probably learn from what other people are doing rather than me doing something myself and then I'll implement that into my business somehow. So I think like the Facebook groups are brilliant, the ones I'm in. You know, like I am on my own, so something like that is a support network, even if I'm just kind of in the background, just being nosy more than anything. But
I think that's really important, and I'm pleased you shared that, because you emphasised working alone, and I was concerned. Well, how do you know what you could be doing, or should in quotes be doing? Because what every accountant does needs to be right for them, and that's not always the same as too many advocates saying there's only one way to do things. Not true. I mean, so I'm impressed by that, and unsurprised that your biggest mistake is not putting your prices up when you perhaps.
It's probably a lot in there.
Yeah.
Like, what would be my actual biggest mistake? I think it's just all blended, isn't it, to the daily life of running a business. I don't think you truly notice, because there might be times where I'll go home and I'll say something to my wife, something I'm really, really worried about, all that's happened. But then it kind of blows over, and then it wasn't as drastic maybe as I was fearing. You know,
I've got one
anything,
actually.
you know.
I've got something. So, I mean, really, really and truly, you niche. I know there are sort of slight variations, but you do niche on the gaming industry, and that is obviously, you know, quite different. You know, you look and feel different. I don't know whether that translates in the sort of day-to-day of how you work with those studios, but how is that kind of niching working out for you? Because it's obviously a passion, isn't it? We've talked about that.
Yes, definitely. So again, from day one, I wanted to niche on something, but I didn't really know what to begin with. And like every business that starts out, as much as you probably do on a niche, you do take on clients of all backgrounds. So, you know, I had a hairdresser, I had a car garage, you know, they all just sort of group together. But I wouldn't say I trial, like more of this, just the notion of coming up with a niche. And then it just kind of just came on me one day. I just wanted to work on something that I was already passionate about. So I do love video games. I grew up with the video game era. Like I said, I mentioned the Sega Mega Drive. I've always played video games. I also play the drums. I've been playing the drums 25 years.
Wow.
But it was actually inspired by another accountant who niched in the music industry. And I thought, well, that actually is awesome. I'll just do the same for the video game industry. And then my third passion is Manchester United, but never going to work for them. So, you know, I just went for the video games, and I thought, you know what, let's just roll with this. It's fun. And yeah, I actually do live and breathe the vibe of video games. So like my office is like a gigantic man cave. I've got racing rigs for like Formula One. It's all neon lights, as you can see with my sign behind me. So it's got the theme in the office and stuff, and like my website and just everything that I mean, I don't do a lot of social media, but like the whole house behind the video game sort of industry is within my sort of branding.
And you mentioned also that you have this large office. And is that because there isn't space at home and this was the only space you could get? Is it because you wanted a large space to sort of run around in when you clients frustrated?
So
what's the reason?
A million reasons. When I first started, I was working from home, and I loved that to begin with. I loved it. I've got a pet dog. Love spending time with her every day. And I was really good at not switching the telly on and things like that. I was quite focused, but in the end, I thought, you know, I probably need to go out now. So then I went to work in a co-working studio, a co-working space. But I always knew I wanted to have my office. And near where I live, there were these flexible workshops. We basically have like 1 year's lease. So there's not much of a commitment. And I had my eye on this place for ages. And it was just before COVID hit. One came available, this one, and I was like, wow, I need that place. So I said yes. A month later, COVID hit. I was like, what have I done? I didn't actually move in until like November or December that year because I needed a lot of the main reason I took out this workshop, though, is I wanted to run events from my place. But I'm not going to lie, that's something that hasn't actually happened. Couldn't do it during the COVID times. I know that was a long time ago now, but really I just haven't picked up that. So I just kept the space.
Yeah, but I mean, it is a vibe, isn't it? And I'm kind of
Yeah.
interested in that because, you know, that translates into those conversations you have with clients, and it translates for sure with those people kind of you pick up along the way, you know, the clients that you sort of take on. And, you know, as a gamer, and, you know, I used to work for a gaming company actually, and, you know, actually a lot of the programmers do end up sort of sitting in a darkened room, don't they, all the time? So you're kind of living and breathing it. So that's the kind of unique bit that
Well,
that
yeah, I've got
kind
the
of one
lights
of
on. I've got the light on now because I'm on a webcam. But as soon as I'm off, I'm switching the light off because I just sit. I've got neon lights in the office, and I just sit in a dark, pink
yeah
environment, and it keeps me focused. But going back to like what I was saying when I first started, like there was 3 levels. There's the level I need to be, the level I should be, and the level I want to be. The first level did incorporate, and that's the way I did it, all the things I wanted my business to look like 5 years down the line. I don't live like I wanted to invest in what I wanted my business to look like later down the line, and that's evolved throughout time. So I knew from day one I wanted an office, and I was prepared to pay the cost. It's my biggest cost. Like I would save a lot of money if I just gave up this place today and just work from my house, but it's just part of the ethos of my business. And I knew from day one that I didn't know I was going to get this office, but I knew I would have one. And
Awesome.
you know, my friends will ask me how much do I pay for the office, and you know, and they'd be negative about it, but I refuse to be offended by it really, because I want this place as part of my business, and one day I will eventually get a running event from here, because I actually do want to start doing that next year anyway. It did fall by the wayside, but it doesn't matter because I've got my own office. It's a beautiful space. Everyone who comes in, you're like, am I in the right place? You know, I've just built a little, just above me, I've just built a little room, which was just a storage room, into a podcast/media room now. So I hope to use that going forward, as long as the gym next door stops using their kettlebells all the time.
But
You know,
I think it's really important what you're saying, because you're actually living it. You're living your brand. So somebody's going to go onto your website, and then if you do Zoom calls, I don't know whether you do or whatever, or if they visit you, you're basically doing what it says on the tin, aren't you? So, you know, at the end of the day, you've got to be good at the numbers, and you've got to, you know, look after your clients well. And that's, I always call that a hygiene factor. You know, you've
Yeah.
got the grades, you've got the accreditation or whatever, but and you know that you've got places you want to go, and there are 3, you know, stages or whatever, and you're not there yet. But what I love is the fact that you do live it. You know, you have translated that dream into a physical representation of it, and it sounds to me like wherever you look or feel or hear, you'd get exactly the same. And I think that for me is the most important thing. What do you think, Mark? Where are you?
Yeah, right. I'm super impressed with what Andrew has said in the way that he's built the practice and the vision he had at the outset and how he's stuck to it. But I also think from what you said, Andrew, that yes, yes, you're aware you could save a lot of money if you didn't have the space, but you want to have it. You feel comfortable in it. You're able to work effectively and productively there. And absolutely, you should continue doing what you want in that regard. Did you say before we started recording, and I think this is what Philippa was alluding to when we talked about niching, but before we started recording, you mentioned that you're expanding that out, planning to expand that out in the new year?
yeah, so yeah, I niche on the video game industry in its entirety. I've been mostly focused on video game studios the last 2 years, but next year I'm planning to look more into sort of content creators in the video game industry, because there's a lot of them. Mainly because my little boy, he's 9. I let him start playing Fortnite about a year ago, and he's brilliant at it, and it's really cute actually. So even behind me, there's another room with a a large telly in it and a PlayStation. So every Monday at 4 o'clock when he finishes school, he just get home. My wife picks him up, and we'll play together. But he keeps asking me, can he set up a YouTube channel? And I'm like, yeah, well, we'll get there one day. So kind of inspired by him, but because he watches all these videos online, it's clear there's a lot of content creators in the gaming space. So yeah, it was kind of sparked by my little boy, really. Just, you know what, this is a bit of fun, actually. So yeah, I plan to, I'm probably going to go in that direction in the new year. But like I said, I'm also looking to set up some way of using my office space into some masterminds or just a local meetup, really. So.
A local business networking group, local business mastermind, or masterminding for video gaming studios in the area. I could see how that would all work for you. I'm not sure that niching on content, 9-year-old content creators for video games is going to be very difficult.
To be honest, actually, you'd be surprised. So, so I did set up another brand, and it's on my website. It's called Coin Drop. I'm actually wearing a jumper now. It didn't start off, but it started off as a cryptocurrency separate brand, same part of the same business, but I just wanted to use a sub brand to market for cryptocurrency sort of tax services. But in the end, I decided to ditch that a couple of months back. So I've keeping the name, just completely rebranding. So one thing I thought, right, how can I repurpose this brand? Because I do love the whole brand behind it. So one thing I am going to do next year, you'll be surprised, is I'm using ChatGPT to sort of get there. ChatGPT is probably my best friend, actually. But
I can understand that.
Eventually ascertain that there's not a lot of support out there for parents who've got children who are making money online.
Yes.
So I'm going to set up a resource for parents, and that might turn into a marketing feed then into like the main business.
Nice.
So that was something I'm probably going to focus on next year.
Nice. Yeah. Well, I don't know a lot about, well, not certainly with the gaming community, but I've certainly heard of Laserbeam and people like that, who my son, who's 16, was obsessed with a couple of years ago. So, and I'm still getting Instagram posts from him.
Yeah, there's loads out there, and to be honest, they are quite entertaining when my little boy watches them in the morning. Yeah. But it's not just content creators in the gaming industry. It'll be content creators in of all sorts, really. But I think it just makes sense to just kind of go down that direction, because
and of course then your marketing, you do the same as they do, which is
exactly,
you find yourself where they are.
Yeah, because I've got a studio set upstairs now. I want to set my own up, and I don't think you can really resonate with people unless you are doing some kind of I don't know, activity that resonates with them, really. And like, okay, with the video game studio, that's fine. I don't have, I'm not making any video games myself, but I'm obsessed with video games, so it naturally we have good conversations with the clients I've got. So it'll be the same then with content creators next year, because me and my little boys, we did end up setting up a YouTube channel in the summer. We only got a few videos on there, and
give us the link to that, so
I'll send you the link after, because it's quite difficult to find. We've got a few videos on there. Some are really cheesy, but golden retriever videos work the best.
That is awesome. And what you just said remind me, I know an accountant in his 20s who's very active on Instagram, which is quite unusual for accountants. But why is he active on Instagram? Because most of his clients are Instagram influencers who love the fact that their accountant is doing what they do. And they all tell each other, well, you've got to go to this guy because he's an Instagram person too. Go where your audience is. Excellent advice.
Brilliant. Well, this is turning into a really lovely fireside chat, and I would really love to carry on, which is what I always say. But genuinely, it's totally fascinating. I just love where your business life and family life is kind of taking you. There's some lovely stuff there, but I suppose we ought to leave it there, hadn't we?
Yeah.
But thanks, Andrew, for for guesting today. It's been a pleasure, and I know you're setting up your own podcast soon, so we'll look out for that. But tell us in the meantime how people can get in touch with you, because there are quite a few listeners, and if somebody wants to sort of carry on the conversation or even talk about working with you as their accountant, how can they find you?
Probably LinkedIn's maybe the best bet, or you can go on my website and there's a contact form on there. I think my email's
Give us your
on
website address, just.
So it's just skylifeaccountancy.co.uk. So SKYLIFE accountancy.co.uk.
Nice, very good. It's worth looking at, everybody.
Yeah, it's very. I was say very. It's very distinct.
It's still not finished. It's just an ongoing job, but because I'm doing it myself, I think that's fine.
Long as it's not putting off your ideal clients, that's the key thing. And Philip,
the worst thing, if we just go back to when I first started the business, that was my first major expense. I did pay for a website to be done, and I was wondering why I wasn't getting any leads off it. And it took about 3 years, and it'd been set up with a dud email address, and I was just like, oh my gosh,
no.
Like, I'm just starting over with a new website, and just
yeah, that's a good one for everybody to be aware of.
Good lesson.
And it looked amazing, the website, but like I said, it just didn't work. And I think I just lost the heart for it then before I start over. And I think that was around about the time I was thinking of niching it in the video game industry anyway. So
cool.
Very good, good move. So thank you for that, Andrew. And Philippa, how can listeners find out more about you and your business, Insight 101?
Yeah, well, I mean, Andrew is the incarnation of what I do, really. For those who haven't really thought about what their niche is and how they're going to sort of bring that to life, etc., with their website and all of their marketing. If this has kind of resonated with you, but you really want to understand what makes you different and how you can sort of work with that and get the ideal clients, then definitely come and find me on LinkedIn or on my website, which is insight101.co.uk. And Mark, finally, tell us about your Soul Practice Club and how people can find you.
Okay, well, as you know, I tend to support accountants and be running their own practice for a while, but feel they could benefit from an experienced, non-judgmental sounding board. And accountants tell me they value my caring, pragmatic and commercial approach, as well as the support, encouragement, guidance and advice I'm only too pleased to share. And I do that one-to-one with many accountants, sole practitioners, and others choose to join the Soul Practice Club, a supportive group of fellow sole practitioners. I'm always happy to have an initial conversation, no obligation, no expectation, no strings and no pushy sales techniques. I also encourage listeners to this podcast to reach out and connect with me and Philippa on LinkedIn.
Yep. So just before we go, let's mention our sponsors again. Pinnacle Global Group, your trusted outsourcing partner. Do check out their website and let their CEO, Mayank, know how you heard about Pinnacle Global on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast.
And thanks too to the Tax Advice Network, the easiest way for accountants to reach specialist tax advisors. Remember, there's no charge for using the website findataxadvisor.online, where you can also access their weekly tax tips for general practitioner accountants.
Great. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the love online, subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or YouTube, and let us have your feedback directly too. It all helps to potentially broaden the reach of the podcast. Do also please contact myself or Mark if you'd like to be interviewed in the future, or if there's somebody you'd like to hear. If you'd like to be a guest, then please recommend them and we'll try and interview them too.
Yeah, lovely. Thank you for that, Philippa. Thanks again to Andrew, another brilliant guest. Until next time on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast, or anywhere else we might meet online or in real life. Bye-bye for now.
Bye for now.